Okay, here we have two parallel lines. Parallel lines do not ever intersect. Now, the line that runs through the parallel lines is called a transversal. Okay, so with two parallel lines and a transversal that runs between them, we have different rules about angles. We can find if these angles are congruent. Congruent angles are the same. Okay. We also have, if you remember from last week, supplementary angles. Supplementary angles equal 180 degrees. Sorry, my windows are open and a motorcycle came up. All right, so we have supplementary angles. They equal 180 degrees. We also have complementary angles. They equal 90 degrees. Okay, so the first rules that I want to talk about is a straight line. We know that straight lines always equal 180 degrees. So straight angle is what it's called, equals 180 degrees. Okay, so that means that when we add angle 1 and angle 3 together, they must equal 180 degrees because they are a straight angle. Now, another rule that we talked about is we talked about vertical angles. Okay, vertical angles share a vertex. They are going to be opposite of each other. So let's add this over here to our notes. Vertical angles. They're opposite of each other. So I'm going to say an example is angles 1 and 4. Okay. Now, our next set of angles that we talked about are same side interior angles. Now, this is where we have, remember I talked about the the hamburger buns. So here's the buns. Okay, and then we have the hamburger patty. So we'll go in a circle. Okay. Everything inside that hamburger is going to be interior. Okay. And then we also have everything that is on the outside of the meat would be in the bun. So that's going to be outside, and that's going to mean exterior. Now, don't forget, we have this transversal. So if it is on the same side of that transversal, then it's going to be called same side. Now, if it is interior, same side. Now, if it's inside the meat, it's going to be interior. So that means that they're inside the parallel lines. And on the same side of the transversal. An example of that would be angles 5 use a different color here. Would be angles 5 and 3. Those are same side interior angles. So an example would be angles 3 and 5. Sorry, I should add up here that the angles 1 and 4 and that these angles are congruent, which means they are the same as. Now back to the same side interior, it's important to know that these angles are supplementary. So what does supplementary mean? Supplementary means that they equal 180 degrees. Congruent means that they equal the same thing. So now we have the vertical angles 1 and 4. They are congruent. And then we have 5 and 3, and that means that they are supplementary. Okay. Now, the next set of angles that we have, we can say same side exterior. So remember, exterior is outside. So an example of those would be 1 and 7. So same side exterior is going to be outside the parallel lines and on the same side of the transversal. An example of those, 1 and 7. And these are also supplementary. Okay. Now we're going to have angles that are opposite of each other. If they are opposite of each other, they're opposite on alternate sides of the transversal. So we have 5 and 4. These are on the opposite sides of the transversal, or we can say that they are an alternate. That is the name of the angle. Alternate. And now are they on the inside of the hamburger patty or the outside? They're both on the inside, so it'd be alternate interior angles. So that means they're inside the parallel lines and on the same side, on the opposite, so alternate. The example we gave would be angles 4 and 5. These angles are congruent. So if you notice, they were same side, both start with S, and these are supplementary. Supplementary starts with S. Okay. The other angles that we've talked about, vertical angles and the alternate interior angles, are all congruent. Now we also have alternate exterior angles. So we have 7 and 2. Could be an example of those. They are outside the hamburger patty, so outside of the parallel lines, and they are on opposite sides or alternate sides of the transfer. So these are alternate exterior. They're outside the parallel lines and on the opposite sides of the transversal. So examples would be 7 and 2. And they are congruent. I'm going to move this over here. Make it that way. We can see together. Okay. Now there's one more type of angles that we learned, and those are corresponding angles. I feel like this is what gives you guys actually the most difficulty. Corresponding angles are just angles that are in the same place, just on separate parallel lines. So we have angle 5 and 1 would be an example. We could also do angles 6 and 2. They would be corresponding angles. We could also do angles 8 and 4. So let's write that out. We have corresponding angles. These angles are, we can say that they are in the same relative position on the parallel lines. So the examples are 4 and 8. Or you could say, we said 2 and 6. But these are congruent. Now, those are all the different types of angles that we have. So now we need to think about what all of that means. Put my little box on here so there you go. Okay, now let's think about what all that means. I'm going to clean up my drawings over here. Now those are parallel lines. And this is the transversal. Okay, so let's say that angle 5 is 60 degrees. And the question is telling you to find angle 4. Okay, so we would need to look at our rules, and we could say, all right, well, it gives us 5. Now, what rule does angles 4 and 5 follow? Well, they're both on the inside, so that means they're interior, but they're on the opposite sides or alternate sides of the transversal. That must mean that they are going to be alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. So that means angle 4 must also be 60 degrees. Okay. Now let's say that it gave us angle 5 was 150 degrees, because obviously it's an obtuse angle, so it has to be more than 90. So 150 degrees. And it asks us to find the measure of angle 3. Okay, well, I know they're on the same side, right? So it could either be interior or exterior. Well, they're both on the inside of the parallel lines. So then our answer must be same side interior angles. So they are supplementary. That means when I add them together, they have to equal 180 degrees. So 150 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. So if I subtract both sides by 150, I get that angle 3 is equal to 30 degrees. Okay, sorry, the baby was crying, so if she starts to make noise now for the rest of the video, I'm sorry, but I want to get it finished for you, but I have to mom too. Okay. So now we already talked about same side interior angles, and we already talked about alternate exterior angles. Let me show you an example of how to find alternate interior angles. Oh, we already did. Sorry. We did alternate interior. We need to do alternate exterior. So if it tells us that the measure of angle 8 is 140 degrees, and we need to find the measure of angle 1. Well, they are congruent, so that means the measure of angle 1 needs to be 140 degrees as well. So we've covered alternate exterior, we've covered alternate interior, and we've covered the same side interior. Now let's look at the same side exterior. So if it tells us that measure of angle 8 is 140 degrees, now it's on the same side. If we look for the measure of angle 2. So therefore, the measure of angle 2 plus 140 degrees, because that's the measure of angle 8, equals 180. You can subtract 140 from both sides. And the measure of angle 2 equals 40 degrees. Looks like 48. 40 degrees. And that tells us same side exterior. They are supplementary. Now what if it tells me to find the measure of angle 5? We can look at all of our rules for the measure of angle 5 as well. The measure of angle 5 and the measure of angle 8 are congruent. So that means that the measure of angle 5 must be 140 degrees. What if it asks me for the measure of angle 1? Well, then we would know that the measure of angle 1 is also congruent, so that would be 140 degrees. That is how we can use all of our rules of angles to solve and find the measures of other angles.